So, there's this huge new tariff that just got slapped on Indian exports to the US, and it's sending some serious shockwaves through the economy. But here's the real question. Is this a full-blown crisis that could cost millions of jobs, or is it the exact wake-up call India needs to unlock its true potential? Let's get into it and figure out what's really going on.
Yeah, it all comes down to this one absolutely staggering number that changes everything: 50%.
So what does that 50% mean? Well, that's the total tariff Indian goods are now facing just to get into the US. You see, there was already a 25% tariff, and this new 25% levy got tacked right on top. It's a secondary sanction, and it's directly linked to India's decision to keep buying Russian crude oil. And, a move like this, it puts billions of dollars of trade under some serious, serious pressure right away. So that's the setup. And it really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? Is this a devastating blow that could cripple some of India's most important industries? Or could this shock actually be the catalyst for a much-needed breakthrough? Let's explore both sides of that.
Okay, so first up, let's tackle the crisis argument, the view that this is a really, really big problem. For a lot of people, the threat isn't some distant thing. It's immediate and it's severe. And you can see the human cost laid out in pretty stark terms right here from Sudhir Dinger of Orient Craft. He's warning that if a deal isn't worked out, 1 crore people, that's 10 million people, could be out of a job in just a few months. Think about the apparel industry. It's so labor-intensive, so dependent on the American market, and it runs on razor-thin margins. For them, this is an existential threat. And look, the worry isn't just about physical stuff like clothes anymore. The anxiety is actually starting to creep into India's, its crown jewel, the IT services sector. There's a growing fear that the US might even think about extending these tariffs to software exports and remote work. And when we talk about the IT sector, the stakes are just massive. We're talking about an industry valued at over $283 billion. And this chart right here, this really shows you why the sector is so vulnerable. Over 60%, more than half, of its entire revenue comes straight from the US market. So any disruption there, it's not just a little problem, it's a full-on systemic shock. So what's the big fear here for IT? It's something called double taxation. See, Indian IT firms already pay a good amount of taxes in the US on the work they do there. A new tariff on their exports would mean getting taxed again on the exact same revenue. It would basically crush their profit margins. Now, to be fair, from the US perspective, this isn't just coming out of the blue. As President Trump has said, the argument is that the trade relationship has been a one-sided disaster for a long time, and that American companies have had a tough time getting access to the Indian market. So from that point of view, these aggressive tariffs are a way to try and rebalance the scales. Okay, but that's just one side of the coin. There is a totally different way to look at this whole situation. A lot of people are arguing this isn't a crisis at all. In fact, it might just be a golden opportunity for India to finally push through some really big, long overdue reforms. You've got global investors like Anurag Singh who are basically saying, hey everyone, calm down. His take is that India has kind of consciously chosen this path. It decided to focus more on its own domestic market instead of opening up completely to US demands. So this tariff, it's just the known cost of that decision. It's a calculated trade-off India decided to make. Okay, so if this is an opportunity, what's the game plan? Well, Noshad Forbes, who used to be the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, lays out a pretty clear 3-step strategy. Step 1. Short term, protect the little guys, the small firms with US orders who are most at risk right now. Step 2, medium term. Start diversifying like crazy. Go after free trade deals, especially in Asia, and don't be so reliant on the US. And step 3, long term, this is the big one. Go after the real problem and make the entire Indian economy way more competitive through deregulation.
And that long-term part, that's the real meat of it. We're talking about tackling these ancient problems that have held India back for years. Things like super complex land laws, crazy tax regulations, and even weird rules that make raw materials like steel more expensive than the finished products you make from them. The argument is, this tariff shock might just be the political push needed to finally fix all this stuff. All right, you can't talk about global trade today without talking about the elephant in the room, right? China. And for India, in this new situation, China represents both a huge risk and potentially a huge reward. And for India, this is the core dilemma. On the one hand, a lot of Indian industries are super dependent on China for critical parts and technology. Think solar panels, electronics, you name it.
But on the other hand, with global companies all looking for a China plus one strategy to diversify their manufacturing, India is in the perfect spot to grab all that new investment. These U.S. tariffs could force India to lean much more heavily one way or the other.
And then, to make things even more complicated, get this. China has actually come out and publicly slammed the U.S. tariffs on India. The Chinese ambassador, Zhu Feiheng, called them unfair and unreasonable. It kind of positions Beijing as a surprising and maybe temporary ally for New Delhi in the specific fight. So where does that leave us? You've got this story of a crisis, a story of an opportunity, and all this geopolitical chess playing in the background. How do you make sense of the path forward for Indian businesses? I think this quote from Vivek Vikram Singh is just the perfect way to think about this moment. He's basically saying uncertainty isn't something to be afraid of. It's not a barrier, it's a landscape, it's a test. The companies that just sit around waiting for the fog to clear are going to get left behind, but the ones that learn to feel their way through it, to navigate it, they're going to come out way ahead. So let's just boil it all down, right? This is the tale of two outlooks. On the one hand, you have very real reasons for concern. The risk of mass layoffs, the threat to the crucial IT sector, that deep reliance on China. But on the other hand, you have some powerful reasons for optimism. This could be the catalyst for reforms India has needed for decades, a chance to diversify trade, and a historic opportunity to become that China plus one alternative everyone is looking for. And that really brings us to the final question, the big takeaway here. As Indian businesses try to navigate through this economic fog, will it eventually clear to reveal a stronger, more competitive Indian economy? Or will it be an economy that got lost and left behind? Honestly, the moves India makes in the next few months will decide everything.